Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of Shop My Stash Switch. This is the monthly series that I do here on my channel since the beginning of this year. I know we're already in the middle of May and time got away from me this month. I will give myself a little bit extra time just to be fair, so the next video will come out in the beginning of July. And as per usual, I'm gonna go over all the products that I selected for the month of April. First, I'm gonna get into speed reviews of all the products that I selected, and then I will rank all these eyeshadow palettes, and then we will go shop through my stash for the next month rotation. But before I continue, I would like to welcome new visitors and viewers to my channel. Hi, my name is Eve. Here on my channel, I share about all things beauty, makeup, skincare, hair care, lifestyle things like travel and fashion. I post new videos every week, and if that sounds like your thing, I hope you stick around, subscribe to my channel, and if you enjoyed this video, give this a big thumb up, and without further ado, let's dive in. So for my primers, I had selected 4 last time, and they were all different consistencies and had different purposes. This first one was from Derma Blend, and this is an Insta Grip Jelly Primer. I really like this product. I will be putting this back into my stash this time. This is an excellent primer that gives you a little bit of hydration and also has a really nice gripping effect that really makes your foundation stick to it and adds to longevity of wear of your complexion products. The next primer that I had was this from Smashbox. This is Oil and Shine Control Primer. This is a primer to me that does a double duty. So it's a pore filling and smoothing, also helps control your shine throughout the day. I ended up using this quite a bit, but going forward, I am going to be keeping this primer in my rotation. With my combination oily skin, this is the type of primer that I would be typically reaching for, so I'm going to keep this around. Then I had the Benefit Professional Primer. This is a really classic, all well-known primer for smoothing and pore filling. Really nice formula. I used it a few times, but I think I'm going to be putting it back because going into summer is just not one of the products that I'm going to be gravitating towards. And then the Marshmallow Primer, I had a small size here. I've used it also a good amount. I really like that this formula has really nice hydration, and I practically finished this. I think I can squeeze one more use out of this, so I'm gonna keep this around, but I'm gonna consider this practically an empty. Then I had 3 concealers selected. I had Born This Way from Too Faced. Mine was in the shade Swan. This is beautiful full coverage concealer. I'm actually wearing it today. I ended up using it quite a bit in the past several weeks in the month of April. This next one is from Wet n Wild. I had mine in the shade Fair also. This is a very brightening concealer and also very full coverage. I am tan, by the way, today, you guys. You can see how bright this shade is in comparison to my tanned skin. This is a nice formula. However, I didn't reach for it that many times. I think I used it twice in this entire period of time because of the shade. I think it's a little bit too bright for me at the moment. So this is a concealer that's gonna go back. And then my third one was the Infallible from L'Oreal. I had mine in the shade 330 Ivory. I'm gonna show you a swatch. This is also a considerably bright shade for me, but not as bright as the Wet n Wild one. I use this a good amount, and I'm going to put this back at this time. For my foundations, I picked 5 formulas this time, and then I had L'Oreal Infallible, which is an excellent formula. It just looks very nice on skin. It's not too heavy, it's not too thin. It does have a buildable coverage. It looks pretty natural on skin, I should say, and considerably long wearing. In April, I used this foundation a good handful of times, but I want to still keep this around for another round. And then I had the Super Balanced Makeup from Clinique. I use this foundation in Chit Chat to Get Ready With Me video. I really enjoyed this formula. It's really nice and thin, however, it gives you a really nice, comfortable coverage, and it is considerably long lasting on my skin. The shade is definitely a little bit deeper than my palest self, so now that I start tanning, I could be reaching for it during summer. I will be putting this foundation back this time. And then I had a Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator. Mine is in the shade Fair, and I actually ended up using this a ton. I like this tinted hydrator a lot. I will tell you what, I actually learned to like it. Initially, when I got it, I did not like it as much because I thought it was too hydrating for me. But actually now I like it. I applied in a very, very thin layer. This is also a buildable product, so you can build up the coverage a little bit. It's very thin and hydrating formula. However, it works on my combination oily skin if I use it on the mattifying primer, and also obviously I need to set it with a powder. I also would apply it in a very thin layer. It does build up a little bit, however, it's still a very light coverage that I would need to use maybe like a powder foundation to touch up my redness a little bit, or use a spot concealer for my redness, things like that. But generally it is a really lovely formula. This has been used quite a bit in the past month, so I'll be putting this back and giving it a break. The foundation that I'm wearing today is this one from IT Cosmetics. This is Bye Bye Foundation Full Coverage Moisturizer. This is a matte formula, and this has an SPF 50. Mine is in the shade Light. I really like the consistency of this foundation. It almost has like a whipped formula in a way, and because it is a matte formula, I used it on top of this primer, and this provided me with a little bit of hydration. That way this went on skin very smoothly. This is also considerably smoothing formula on its own. I really enjoy this foundation for a hot and humid season, so I'm gonna keep this around for another round. And then the other foundation that I had was Beautiful Skin from Charlotte Tilbury. I have mine in the shade 3 Neutral. This is a little bit deeper shade than my palest self. This is a foundation formula that I am not very thrilled about generally. This foundation looks like it sits on your skin. It doesn't absorb, it doesn't melt into your complexion, and it looks natural. There are some people that loved it or didn't like it. I fell into the category, was kind of like meh about it, so it wasn't that I hated it, but I also don't love it. I learned that the best way for me to make it look good on skin is applied in a thin layer. There's a give and take here. If you apply it in a very thin layer, it does look better on skin generally, but you will compromise on the coverage a little bit, so you do get that lighter medium coverage rather than like a good medium coverage that this states to be. This is the only way that I found that it actually looks good on my skin, but it's still not a favorite. I used this a good handful of times in the past month, and I'm gonna be putting this back. I only had this one selected last time from Smashbox. Initially, I didn't think too much of the setting spray, but I really like it as a primer as well. I find it having a little bit of a gripping, like sticky effect, and it works really well with eyeshadows. It also works very well as a primer, so I'm just gonna continue using it. For my bronzers, I had 4 singles, and then I also had a face palette selected. So LYS bronzer, cream bronzer, I had mine in the shade Motivate. I've been using this so much. I will show you how much I've already used out of this stick. This is an excellent formula. I'm gonna give this a break. I would definitely like to use my other cream products, give them a chance also to be in a rotation. This actually set through my March and April rotation, so I think I'm gonna give this a break. I had the other 3 single bronzers here. Marc Jacobs, I have in the shade 102 Tantric. I've used this bronzer a good amount. This is a beautiful shade, and I'm gonna just keep it for another rotation. And my next bronzer was from Nabla, shade Ambra. This is a beautiful, slightly bit glowy bronzer. This bronzer is so firmly pressed, there's absolutely no fallout. It goes so smoothly on your skin. It does build up, and it gives you beautiful, healthy glow from within. I absolutely love this formula, but I'm gonna be putting this back this time. And my last single bronzer was one from Essence, Sun Club Matte Bronzing Powder for lighter skin in the shade 01 Natural. The lid is still holding on, but barely. There's already like a significant crack here. I've had this bronzer before many times. I really think that this was reformulated. I don't know if this is a fact, but this formula feels different from what I remember this to be previously. I think I'm going to continue using this bronzer while the packaging is also intact. And then for my face palette, I had this Cheek Leader from Benefit selected. This is a beautiful palette. I use this so many times. This cookie highlighter is absolutely stunning. I am wearing it today. Hoola Caramel bronzer is the only one that I do not use. I'm going to be choosing a different face palette for this next rotation. I had 2 different blushes selected. This first one is a trio from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is in the shade Peachy Love. This is a packaging that's not the most convenient. However, I love all these 3 shades. What I would normally do is I would use a very nice fluffy brush and just kind of mix them all together. And then I would need to use a little bit smaller brush or much smaller brush to pick up a specific shade. It's not the best packaging, like I said, but I really like this formula. It's long lasting. So even though I use this a ton, and these are the shades for spring and summer, and we are in the season of the blush. However, I will be putting this back and picking some new blushes to play with. My other blush that I had was this from ColourPop. I love this so much. This is called Around the World. And this is beautiful, like baby pink, but it's not too cool of a tone. It's a little bit more on the warmer side. I use this so many times and I've used it in several of my videos already. You can see it on camera in action, but I will be putting this back, but I know I will be reaching for this blush regardless. For the powders, I had 2 selected, and the LYS powder, I had mine in the shade Resilient. I use it primarily on my T-zone. It's a little bit brightening because the formula is a little bit thicker. However, it doesn't look cakey on skin. It's not the most long lasting on my combination oily skin. However, it does look beautiful on skin as initial setting layer, or finishing layer, I should say, and as a retouching powder as well. I have a big collection of powders that I need to rotate through. This is the entire purpose of this series. So as much as I love this powder, I will be putting it back and choosing different products to play with. Another powder that I used was from Uoma Beauty. This is an excellent powder that nobody talks about. Packaging looks like this. It has this cool circle that you rotate in order for the product to come out from the bottom. So I just really like this powder. It's very thin, it's blurring, it's mattifying, and it's long lasting. I am keeping this around for another round because I used it, but I didn't use it too many times. However, we're now in this hot and humid season in Florida, so I definitely want to keep this handy. Then I had 2 single highlighters selected, a Rimmel and ColourPop. This Rimmel highlight was in this shade Stardust. This has a golden shift to it. It looks like it has a hard pan, but it is actually not it. Almost has this semi-creamy formula that is very soft on touch, but it looks on skin so smooth. I've heard very few people talk about it here on the platform, and I do not know why this is not the super high product, because it is such a gorgeous highlight. In this past rotation, I used this highlighter so many times that I'm gonna give this a break and play with some other highlighters. And this ColourPop I had in the shade Flexitarian. This is a very famous shade of a highlighter from ColourPop. I'm gonna keep this around because I've had this highlighter for some time and I really need to start getting more use out of it. Before we get into eyeshadow palette ranking, I wanted to mention something here. If you're completely brand new, you may not know this. So in the past month, I got inspired to share my MOTD, or makeup of the day, using any of these palettes or any other palettes. Well, primarily they are the palettes from Shop My Stash, because this is basically the purpose of this series, for me to reach out to these specific palettes that I select on a monthly basis. So I started sharing reels with you showing my makeup of the day, the makeup looks for your inspiration. So if you haven't checked those out yet, my Instagram page is always linked for you in the description box. Now let's get into ranking all 8 eyeshadow palettes that I selected for this past rotation. So on number 8 spot, I put a Retro Glam from Natasha Denona. This is a very interesting color story and I like this palette. I do have a dedicated video for this palette if you're interested to see different looks that I created with it. I like this palette, however, I do not love it. It's definitely not my favorite Natasha Denona palette also. I do really love Natasha Denona formulas and this palette is not an exception. It does have a really beautiful quality. I used this palette separately as a companion palette. I used this palette several times in this past month. However, like I said, I would use few shades and I would have to pair it with another palette because that's definitely missing a depth here. On the spot number 7, I had medium nude palette from Huda Beauty. This is a beautiful monochromatic palette. It is warm and leaning a little bit more towards the pink. It definitely does have that rosy undertone in the shades. I generally enjoy Huda eyeshadow formula. I used this several times in the past rotation and I very much enjoy my looks. I do like my warm neutrals, as you may already know. However, this is just a palette that ended up here because I have more exciting palettes coming up. On spot number 6, I had Major Dimensions palette from Patrick Ta. This is a beautiful warm neutral palette. I really like the quality of this eyeshadow palette. Of course, it is very monochromatic. The mattes in this eyeshadow palette are spectacular. They just blend like a dream. There's so much pigment, there's so much depth. And these cream shades, they are really nice. I use them in my waterline. This is the one that I use the most, the darker one, but I also use it as an eyeliner on a very skinny brush. The reason why I'm ranking it a little bit more towards the end is because I primarily use the mattes of this palette and not the shimmers. The spot number 5, I had the Lunar Beauty 12 Days of a Lunar palette here. This is a beautiful, somewhat colorful eyeshadow palette, and I really love that the pans are removable. This was a holiday palette from Lunar Beauty, and it came in the form of advent calendar, which I thought was so cool. I really like this color story. I really like the formula of both mattes and shimmers in this palette. I ended up using this palette selectively. I would reach for specific shimmer in this palette, or I also use this black matte shade quite a bit. It's not overly pigmented, however, it does build up very comfortably. I even used this black shade today just close to my lash line just to smoke it up a little bit. The only reason why this palette ended up in the middle of the way in my ranking today is because there are other palettes that I ended up using way more than this one. On the number 4 spot, I'm putting this Mini Magic from Juvia's Place. I like this palette, but this is a companion palette for me. I primarily love this palette for its shimmers. There's basically not a lot of versatility as far as matte shades go, and you know I love my mattes for the basis of all my looks. Nevertheless, I do have a lot of appreciation for this palette because of the shimmers that are in here. They are spectacular. The shimmers are so gorgeous in this palette, and they're so different. We have pinks and lilacs and this gorgeous yellow one. There's a makeup look that is on my Instagram, like black and yellow. This is the yellow shade that I used for that look because this is so beautiful, reflective. It literally looks like a smooth gold on your lids. I do love this palette for the shimmers primarily. So on spot number 3, I ended up putting Gingerbread Extra Spicy from Too Faced. This palette is no longer even available, but I like this so much. I love my warm neutrals. I've had this palette for several years now, but the quality is still the same as when I bought it. The mattes are so easy to work with. They're pigmented. This area right here, this is where I live. Like this coral and peach and this mustardy color, this rosy tones, is just so beautiful. I could really just use this color story till the end of my days. I would never get bored of it. And then on spot number 2, I have a Norvina from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Does not need any introduction. Gorgeous formula, gorgeous color story. I loved it during the spring April time. I just love how smooth this formula is. I love how it blends. I love all these shimmers. They're just so feminine, so romantic. ABH eyeshadow formula, shimmers and mattes, especially shimmers. I feel like they look so elegant on eyes. Probably the formula that I would always love. And this palette just inspires me every time I look at it. And on the spot number 1 in this rotation, you probably already guessed it. This is a palette that I did my sit down chit chatty get ready with me video for Shop My Stash for the month of April. This is Allure 3 from Juvia's Place. This is just a color story that I love. It's a smaller palette. There are only 6 pans here, but this color story is one of my favorites. If I would have to pick top 10, 15 eyeshadow palettes out of my entire collection, this would be it. I get my neutrals, I get my pops of color. I absolutely love this blue. There are a few looks on my Instagram that you can check out for inspiration. I love the formula. It's just easy to work with. I think this color story, that's what gets me. Half of this palette is neutral, so it is considerably familiar color story, right? If you look on the bottom portion of this palette. However, it also has a punch, like an oomph to it, and that's what makes it for me. So now let's select a new product, and let's start with primers. This is a newly organized drawer. As you can see, the organization video should be already up on my channel. If not before this video, then after this video. There was some decluttering that happened as well. So let's pick a few primers. Going into a warmer season, I definitely want to pick different consistencies of primers again. So I think this time I will go with maybe this Smooth and Blurring primer from Smashbox also, and I think I might just pick this one from Urban Decay as well. This is a very nice blurring primer. I haven't used this Smashbox in some time, so I will just pick these two. From my affordable foundations and concealers, I have to pick a few products, and now going into the season where I'm being more tanned, I will pull out this NYX Bear With Me blurring foundation. This is a matte formula, and maybe I should revisit this Catrice foundation too. This is a matte formula, very nice and thin. I haven't used this in some time. I know they also reformulated it recently. For my concealer, I think I'm gonna pick one from Makeup Revolution IRL Filter Finish. This is in the shade C3. This is a nice formula that I like, so I will pull this one out. From my high-end drawer, let's do the same thing. Pull this product out. This is a concealer from Anastasia Beverly Hills, but this is a little bit deeper shade for me that works as an overall complexion product. This is what I'm going to use. And I think I'm also going to pull this product out. This is Even Better Glow from Clinique. And then I also want to pull this one out from Clinique Stay Matte Oil-Free Makeup or Foundation. I got mine in the shade CN20. This is a new product to me, considerably new. And I haven't used this on camera. Maybe I will use it in my next sit down to try to get ready with me video. This is a nice matte formula. And for the concealer, I think I'm going to pull this Clinique one as well. This is considerably a new product to me as well. In my powder drawer, I think I'm gonna pick few new ones. So I think I wanted to use this Catrice Prime and Fine Mattifying Powder. And I think I also want to grab this one from One Size Beauty. So for my bronzers, highlighters, and blushes, this drawer also has been reorganized from what you remember from the last time. From the bronzers, I think I'm gonna pick, I want to probably use this one from Physicians Formula. I haven't used this one in a while. This is a beautiful glowy formula. And then from the highlighters, I really need to use this one from Bare Minerals. This is a loose highlighter. I tend not to reach for it or tend to even forget that I have it. So I'm gonna try to use it this month. And I also think that I'm gonna maybe pick this one from Juvia's Place. This is a beautiful, very bright highlighter. From the blushes, I really want to pick different blushes. I will be going and selecting cream products also, but from here, I really think that I want to do maybe this one. I haven't used this from Kaja in a while. This has a beautiful baby pink blush and a beautiful highlighter. So let's do that. I really love to use this from Juvia's Place. This is a duo with orange blushes. Yes, I can't wait to use it. From my cream blush drawer, I really want to do this blush. This is a new one from Juvia's Place. I am low-key terrified of this formula. This is in the shade Marigold. I have a reel on my Instagram with this blush. And from the cream bronzer drawer, I would love to pick this one from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is in the shade Amber. From this eyeshadow palette drawer, I'm gonna select, I want something colorful. I think maybe I will use this one, the Coral palette. I really love this color story. I think this palette is discontinued, but I still want to use it for spring. I also may want to use this palette from, not this one from Urban Decay Wild Greens. It has corals and it has some greens. Yeah, I'm excited. I also want to pull this palette out from Urban Decay. This is Naked Reloaded. This is a really nice neutral palette that I really like. From my more affordable drawer, I want to pick something, maybe this. Let's see what this palette looks like from ColourPop. Truly, Madly, Deeply. Sure, why not? Let's pick this one. But I also want to pick this Garden of Juvia. I love this so much. This is partially what's on my eyes today. I'm wearing this shade. I love the shimmers from this palette so much. I'm gonna pull this out too. I also went ahead and pulled out the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. This is considerably new palette to me. I haven't played with this palette quite yet, so I really need to. And then I also picked the Mercury Retrograde from Huda Beauty, and I also pulled out the Modern Renaissance from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Here everything fits beautifully into those two organizers. They're gonna be standing here on my vanity. So let me know in the comments below which of these eyeshadow palettes you would like me to use in my chit chat sit down, get ready with me video, or if you maybe wanted me to create a specific color inspirational look. Let me know of your suggestions or thoughts in the comments below. And if you have any additional questions for me that you would like me to answer in that video as well, leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. So this sums up my video today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next ones.